going to show you a quick Perlenspiel project I worked on, and this is called Reactor Charge. If you watched my previous videos, this project is based on the Perlenspiel JavaScript engine, so it allows to work within a grid space, defining beads, colors, data, and you can manipulate those to prototype games and ideas within a JavaScript engine. So without further ado, as you can see here, this game is a little more complicated than my other projects, just in the mechanics and understanding it. So I actually opted to add a small intro tutorial screen. So you can see move, arrow keys, charge reactor, manage fuel, manage coolant, fire, switch, fuel pickup. Just to give the player an idea. Up at the top here in the status text, you can see some keybinds on how to restart the game, restart it. So I'm going to hit F1. Alright, and then you can see a play space here. It might be a little abstract at first, but once you move around it kind of starts to become apparent. These are walls, these are fuel pickups, and let's just kind of see what happens. So we're going to pick up some fuel. And up at the top, you can actually see the fuel incrementing. Normally, I made a special exception that you picked up the fuel barrels, and those are a one-time pickup, and it maxes out 400 fuel for those, but you can charge later. So for experimentation, it's like, oh, what's the coolant pad do? Oh, it tells me up here, no heat to cool, so maybe I need to do something with the start pad. Oh, need 580 plus charge to start the reactor. So we're here to start the reactor. So let's go up here. Alright, something's happening. So in the middle, you're going to see these incrementing. This is supposed to represent the reactor actually charging. Then you see something critical up here happening, heat. And you also see that your fuel is decrementing for however long you sit on top of the charge pad. Now this is the bad thing. Players are going to start to see what that is supposed to represent as fire. Those I have set to random variables, which is incrementing based off of how much heat you have. So if you run into those, you're going to die. In the interest of time, I'm not going to try to run into one. But I'm getting a lot of heat, so I'm going to go down here and do something about it. Now you'll see that my coolant up in the status text, reduced itself. But you can also see that my charge over here is starting to decrement while I'm not actively charging it. And, oh, well, the fire kind of cut us off, so we got to go around. Using the coolant pad doesn't immediately get rid of the fires. It slows the fire process down, and those will slowly go away if your heat is low enough. So the relationship here is the game is obviously all about resource management. The player's got to really figure out kind of the right process of how much heat they should have versus how much charge they should be putting on it, and how much fuel they need to be getting at the same time. There's not a certain amount of heat that you reach which will automatically kill your character, but it does make it very difficult, as you can see, getting around. In playtesting, players tend to really lean towards just all-out charging and not having any patience. That's definitely a quick way to get yourself killed. So most players tend to die a few times before they really understand the relationship, but that was kind of my purpose on building the game. It does take a little bit longer to beat, so in the interest of time, I'm not going to actually beat it. But you can see it, it would take care of itself. I need to get to 580. We're already at 400. Managing heat. Oh, I'm out of fuel. Okay. So yeah, then next we're going to move on to the code so you can see how I built some of this. Alright, and moving to the code. If you watch my other projects, you'll notice like in my puzzle project I had like 3,000 lines of code. Let's just say that I was a lot more efficient with this project. I barely at not even 2,000 lines of code, and this game is quite a bit more complicated than my puzzle. So my programming techniques got a little bit more efficient, which that just takes practice. As usual, you can see your global variables up here. Here's a new one that I didn't use in my previous games or my puzzle and my toy projects, and that's clock speed. Basically, I'm calling the clock speed, and I can adjust that. So when you saw in the game where the fire was incrementing and or decrementing, or you saw I was charging things, it's kind of a hacky way to do it, but I'm basically taking advantage of this in ps.tick, which is a Perlenspiel function that's hard coded that I can take advantage of. Here you're going to see me, I'm doing a random variable, and I take a big use of random dice rolls, which you can also use during ps.tick. So it's like I can say every tick, roll the dice within this number range, give me that number, whatever that number is, do this. Essentially, these variables are just for the start, level screen, win screen, pretty simple. Game reset, pretty standard. You want to reset your game in some way, either manually or via progression. Token draw. This game uses the manual token. As you saw, I was moving with the arrow keys, so because of that, I need to be able to erase them, draw them again, etc. Check. The big one's got to check to make sure it's in the grid, because if your token runs off the grid, then the engine complains, and it's a pain. This function is just pretty much everything else is just going to be setting up. Excuse me. Is just going to be setting up the charge screen, the starting screen, the actual level. This is a bit lengthy, and I didn't really dive into this before, but the reason why this is so lengthy is I have to set each individual beat. So you'll see an x coordinate, a y coordinate, and then this is a Perlenspiel engine coded color already. I just say ps.color underscore white, and it already knows exactly what to do with it. So that's an advantage of working within Perlenspiel. But I have to set the actual x-y coordinates. You can do this with for loops, while loops, etc. But that takes a little bit longer if you don't, if you're not very practiced with them. And then you'll see here glyph. I'm actually setting. I can set in different values. Usually, you just have to find the right Unicode asset. The engine doesn't work with everything, so you kind of got to find what works. You can put actual letters in there and treat them as glyphs, even though it's not exactly a text string. Winning screen. So basically, you're just going to see all the functions that I need to set everything, to either draw everything or check to see if the winners, the players won, lost, etc. And it should be all familiar stuff you've seen before. But yeah, this was my game project, and it didn't take me near as long as I thought it would, and it was actually probably one of my favorite projects that I've done within Perlenspiel. So this code example is a little bit lengthy. Just wanted to keep it short. I just kind of wanted to show you what was going on. Down here, you'll see these random numbers I was taking advantage of. Those were just for effects, like drawing the little nuclear symbols for the reactor, etc. Checking for heat, checking for charge, checking for fuel, etc. Pretty straightforward. Minimal programming skills required, and you can start doing stuff like this. So I hope you enjoyed this demonstration.